Hi, welcome to the first day of the CSA Cloud Trust Summit. My name's Adam Schneider. I'm the Executive Vice President of Assessment Services at Coalfire, and I'm excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit more about cloud trust and my perspective, gated around finding calmer air as you navigate the cloud, really building off of the turbulence that's existed over the years, and really how do you build trust in this environment across so many different markets and regions and technologies. As we get started here, I really want to focus in on the agenda that I've laid out, really building up to how we build trust in the cloud and then what comes next. So we'll start off with where we are today and the proliferation of compliance requirements that have really popped up because of cloud adoption, and really where it started, where it's been going, where it is today, the purpose of it, and some challenges and solutions. Next, I'll turn my attention a little bit to trust with artificial intelligence, or really any emerging technology. Artificial intelligence is just the one that is hot right now, and it's in every conversation. And honestly, I'd be told that I missed an important topic if I didn't talk about it today. I'll follow that up with some shared responsibility, whether it's a general cloud adoption, adoption of artificial intelligence, or other emerging technologies, the shared responsibility between the service providers and the customers. And then I'll wrap it up with kind of the high level concepts that I cover already around building trust in the cloud and even what comes next in the industry. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the proliferation of compliance requirements. We all feel it. We all know it's here. It's not everybody's favorite topic, but what I really want to do is focus in on what it used to look like, where we are today, and where I see it going. Really talk about the purpose of them, some of the challenges, and even some of the solutions around compliance when it comes to the cloud and really any service organization. So let me start off where this really started, which is with the service organization reports that came out of the AICPA. The AICPA had the SAS 70 and it eventually became the SOC reports to build trust with organizations that were going to be managing a core part of a business for an organization. Globally, we have the ISO standard. The 27001 is now the security standard for the management system around information security. There's a privacy one, and there's also the new 42001 related to artificial intelligence. Those were really the core two that most organizations would get in the past. And then we started to see new regulations pop up like HIPAA, and we saw even some industries pop up that really were seeing more breaches and needed a path to manage that a little bit better. So we saw the major card brands, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, create the payment card industry data security standard. And really that was the start of the growth of compliance to build trust. And now we see them in countries. We see for dealing with the US federal government, you need FedRAMP. For the Australian government, you need IRAP. In Australia or in Spain, you need ENS, and they're all coming up all over the country. So really want to focus in on that purpose. I said it earlier, and I want to make sure that we all understand that compliance was not put on this earth to create problems for all of us, to create more challenges or roadblocks, but it was really a way to demonstrate security and build trust. It all comes down to that trust, which is what this summit is all about. The challenge that we're facing right now is honestly that every market, every industry seems to have its own compliance framework. It wants to take a slightly different approach. Some of them, like the ones in Europe, adopt and tack on to the ISO standard in a lot of cases. So it's not a huge leap, but you do need another certification, and they've all mandated it to work with some of those governments in those countries. Others build their own framework. Like I mentioned, PCI built its own framework, the data security standard. IRAP largely uses the NIST standard, but it's developed some of its own requirements within that and its own path to being certified as well. The U.S. government, as I mentioned, before they use NIST, which is the standard built here in the United States to manage well, in this case, the standard for FedRAMP manage information security in federal systems. And so all of these are popping up. And then we even have some private ones like HITRUST that was really spawned from and became more prominent after several breaches in the healthcare industry back in 2014 and 15. And now it's used as the de facto standard in the industry for the healthcare industry, whether you're a payer provider or a business associate in that area. And they're still popping up far too regularly. So, what's the solution? First of all, I don't believe every organization needs to get every certification, validation, assessment that is out there. It's really gated around a business case and a market you want to access. That market should require some sort of business plan and sales and revenue tied to it. And as the security leader, the compliance leader within your organization, you're probably already doing some assessments, and you should really take a look at what the new market is you're trying to access, what the new requirements are, look at the deltas and be able to demonstrate compliance to those changes. And hopefully they're already part of your security program. Most of these differences aren't huge leaps, they're evolutions of what you're doing today if you're not already doing it. And really, your goal in all of this should be to support the business case. If there is a business case to move into a new market, whether it's a new country, a new industry, your role should be, how do I help build trust with that industry through the compliance process that we have to go through? One thing that I've seen super beneficial is finding a partner to help you map to all of those. You're already doing a lot of work today in your security organizations, your compliance organizations. Take that and find a partner that can help you map to all of the different regulations globally, whether it's using, if you're a CSA star certified or attested, they have mappings from CSA star. You can also find commercial partners like Coalfire. In our platform, Compliance Essentials, we map to over 100 different regulations globally that you can take advantage of what you've already done. And really what you want to do is create this pipeline, this funnel of different regulations, different requirements with your business cases. And really what you want to do is take that funnel it through to build that trust and gain access to new markets. So with that, I want to turn my attention now over to a little bit around trust when it comes to emerging technologies. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence today, specifically because it's top of mind for everybody. Everybody wants to know what to do and how to manage it. But really, you can apply this to any emerging technologies. In my background and history, I watched the evolution from individual client server technologies to virtualization to cloud and now to AI. And really what I've seen through all of those transitions is a similar pattern when it comes to the steps that organizations take to build trust within emerging technologies. So I'll apply this specifically to AI because I think everybody wants to kind of get an understanding of what they can be doing. So number one, and I hope it's not too cliche, but you have to document where you're going and what you're planning to do. What are your controls? How are you building a program? What are your policies, your procedures around how you're going to manage AI, what your intentions are? And these days with AI, there's a concept of responsibility. How are you going to use it responsibly? So you can use the CSA's AI controls matrix. I mentioned earlier, there's the ISO 42001, which is the AI management system from ISO. Great governance tools to help just lay the foundation of what you're doing as an organization around artificial intelligence. Next, it really comes down to use cases. So in the AI world, we call them models usually. How are you going to use this? What models are you going to build? Are you going to be using generative AI like ChatGPT style and Gemini style products and approaches in your use case? Are you going to be using it for something that takes information and spits out other information? I've seen a great use case where video surveillance information is being used and they use AI to summarize the video so that somebody can quickly see and understand what happened in that video without having to read it. With all of these models, and then there's agentic AI. Agentic AI is much more robust, something that has a lot of back and forth conversation, a lot more user input and user prompts that it's using to make decisions. And so each one of these comes with its own risks. And so really the next step is to threat test your model. First of all, you have to understand the threats. the generative AI, the agentic AI, there's a lot of prompts that are being entered in by the users, by a user. Those prompts can be exploited if they're used improperly. We've seen this in customers that Coalfire has personally and directly worked with to help improve and identify risks within their model and threats within their model. Whereas the example I used around video surveillance, the risk is a lot lower in what can come out of that being directly a threat to the organization, but you still need to test it and make sure that the output is useful and accurate, because you don't want to make bad decisions or miss something important because you're using AI that isn't fully telling you the whole story either. So everything has its risks. Some of them have different types of risks. And the prompt injection that we've seen is similar to the old SQL injection. So as you see, there's connections to what we've seen in the past, where if you can get into a prompt conversation with the AI model, you can get it to start to return information that you never intended to come out of your large language model, or the information that's stored and is being used for decision making to return back to the user. And so understanding that, putting the guardrails in, and even managing some of the prompts can sometimes be helpful there. Next, remedy and repeat. So you need to remediate what you're finding, put those guardrails in, and really repeat that cycle so that you understand what the risks are evolving and what threats are evolving within your AI models. And even as you build new use cases, don't assume that your next use case is going to be the same as your new one. You should be testing each model in its own state to make sure that you're identifying and managing through those threats. Finally, with any emerging technology, the transparency around what you're doing, what you have done to build trust around the governance and getting certifications like ISO 42001, and then also offering up information about what you've done to test your model, go beyond just the basic certification, can be a huge catalyst to building trust within new technologies like AI. So next up, I'll talk a little bit about shared responsibility, because when it comes to the cloud, when it comes to AI, it's usually not just one organization that is responsible. So cloud service providers definitely have a unique responsibility to document their responsibilities and the boundaries of those. What do they do and what do customers do? They should make it as easy as possible to implement those security requirements. Secure by design is all the rage these days, and it should be secure by delivery too when it comes to cloud service offerings, so that out of the box you can get a cloud native, a cloud platform that is already secure. And also you want it to protect the customers from misconfigurations. I've seen organizations and steps that if you try to turn off something, it'll at least warn you. And there's also detective controls that can be put in place that identify when something's been turned off that is intended for security and even to meet a compliance requirement. So with that, now we turn our focus to the customers. So CSP customers do still have a huge responsibility. Just because they're using a cloud service provider, their responsibility is not absolved. And in fact, depending on the type of cloud service you're using, it could be more responsibility for the customer or less. So usually infrastructure as a service providers, there's more responsibility on the customer because they own more of the inner workings of how they use the cloud. And then as you move up through platform as a service and software as a service, it becomes more and more that the service provider may have more responsibility, but the customer still has configuration that they have to implement. And so make sure you understand those responsibilities for the cloud technologies you're using, configure it properly, test it to make sure it's secure and securely implemented. And then many cloud service providers these days offer capabilities, tools, or there's third-party tools to take a look at your security configuration and make sure that it's still meeting your security requirements and even compliant security requirements. And so you want to do that to make sure you're maintaining and monitoring your security configuration over time. So that brings me to kind of the building blocks that I've talked about throughout the session here today around generally building trust in the cloud, which is number one, demonstrating compliance. Demonstrating compliance, I get it. It's painful. Not everybody loves it, but it's part of building that trust and demonstrating your security posture to other organizations that may want to leverage your technology. Number two, don't rely just on compliance. You have a responsibility to maintain security, make sure you continue testing it. Threats evolve, risks evolve, and especially when you're talking about emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, make sure you're testing and retesting to protect against those threats. Finally, be transparent. Your certifications are a great first step. Put those up on your website, on your trust sites, so that customers know what you're doing to maintain security and demonstrate security within your organization, but also the extra work you're doing. Ask your providers, ask your pen testers to write reports, write one-page documents on what they've done and how they've proven out the security of your environment, especially when it comes to emerging technologies, and even what you're doing to continue to improve. Finally, I'll leave you with this because all of this builds up, and really the industry is starting to evolve and continuing to evolve from a compliance perspective and trust perspective. So really what I see coming next is this drive for automation. So much of the world around us is being automated, but compliance has been lagging. What we're seeing now with what CSA is doing with the compliance automation revolution, the CAR initiative that they're working on, as well as what we're seeing in the industry, specifically around FedRAMP with the FedRAMP 20X program and working groups and pilot that's happening. What we're seeing is that they're taking all of these different requirements, these different frameworks, and really trying to harmonize them and really make it so that as the cloud becomes more prevalent, as automation becomes more prevalent, compliance outcomes and trust can be more automated so that we don't have to do the manual testing, the manual outputs, and we can even use AI in this. We've seen use cases, and we're even building some ourselves as a compliance assessment company to take information using AI, review policies, review procedures, map to different requirements and regulations automatically, um, and even take additional steps so that when we're provided something that is more of a manual review screenshot or something like that, it can analyze those screenshots and give us an output so that we can more quickly assess our customers, even when the information doesn't come to us in a machine readable format. So you'll have traditional automation, and then you'll have AI-driven automation that takes advantage of all the different technologies that are around us, but making sure that we're looking at that automation, making sure that it's doing the right things so that we can rely on it long term, and use that information for compliance outcomes. Okay, with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me today, taking a few minutes to hear my perspective. I hope you stick around for the next session and final thoughts, and thank you for attending.